What up, Ho Biscuits? It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. First and foremost, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe and sanitized. Today, we are here to watch some overly sarcastic productions. And real quick, before we get into the video, I just want to briefly touch on the very minor controversy surrounding their most recent detail diatribe. Apparently, people were very upset that in that video, they called that Amazon Prime show, The Boys, they called it trauma porn, and then at the same time, like offered up an analysis and offered up like their analysis of the show based on what they had seen, but also acknowledged that they had never watched the show and probably would never watch it. And people lost their freaking minds. Well, you shouldn't have an opinion of something. You can't have an opinion of something if you haven't watched it. You need to watch it. And if you're not going to watch it, then you should just not say what your opinion is because it's an uninformed opinion. Like, first and foremost, people are allowed to have uninformed opinions, especially if they say, this is my uninformed opinion, which is exactly what they did. So I do not understand what all the kerfuffle was about. Like, and Red even doubled down in their tweets and was like, yeah, no, the way you guys are acting is guaranteeing that I will never watch the show because you, like, obviously I'm paraphrasing. Red is a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say verbose, but that sounds vaguely pretentious. Eloquent. There we go. Red was a lot more eloquent, but like basically she was like, yeah, y'all ruined the, like y'all are ruining the show like even more. So I just want to say, leave them alone. They do not have to like the show. They do not have to watch the show. And just to be clear, the show is not that complex. A summary of the show is good enough to offer a very, like, a summary of the show is good enough to offer an opinion. Like, that's just how that works. Anti-Who's today we are here to watch Miscellaneous Myths Thoth, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, Gambles with the Moon. Now, I'm unsure if that means like the moon is personified and him and the moon like have a bet going on, or if he literally uses the moon to gamble with, like he's like, I bet you the moon, that's something. So I'm excited to see what this video has in store for us. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
You know those deliberately unsatisfying videos where it looks like something's set up to be absolutely flawless, but then something misses by inches and the whole thing falls apart? The lunisolar calendar is like that. It should be a beautiful, perfect system of wheels within wheels, pleasingly regular orbits with completely predictable outcomes. And it kind of is, but the problem is, the lunar month, aka the time it takes the moon to fully orbit the Earth, is 30 days, and the solar year, the time it takes the Earth to fully orbit the Sun, is 365 days, which means 12 lunar months is 5 days short of a solar year. That's already annoying enough. If you measure your years by the moon, which is extremely convenient due to its phase visibly changing every day, within 6 years the sun is a whole lunar cycle off position, which has a noticeable impact on seasonal weather. If you measure your years by the sun, which is a little more difficult unless you're really paying attention to the position of the stars, the seasons might stay consistent, but the lunar cycle is 5 days offset and you can't use full moons to demarcate the months anymore. And it gets worse. Technically, those cyclic lengths are only approximations. Our day length isn't some celestial unit inscribed on the heavens that the sun and the moon adhere to. It's just how fast the Earth spins. There's no reason the moon would orbit exactly 30 times slower than the Earth turns. So technically, a solar year is actually 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds. And a lunar month is 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, and 2.9 seconds. There's no way to get those perfectly lined up, and any calendar that's based on whole days as its smallest unit, which is all of them, will inevitably have to account for rounding errors within a few short years. This betrayal of modular arithmetic hurts my soul and single-handedly convinced me that if there is a creator god responsible for the turning of the celestial spheres, they're a real asshole. Now, while almost every culture has its own way of reckoning the calendar, almost all of them have accounted for this discrepancy in one way or another. Ancient Babylon favored lunar months for reckoning time and made up the time slip with an intercalary month added every once in a while, roughly 7 times every 19 years, to make up the missing time so the calendar stayed in rough alignment with the observed seasons. The Hebrew calendar started off very similar to the Babylonian one, but was replaced with a calculated calendar rather than an observational one over the course of the first millennium CE, which got pretty solidly locked in by our boy Maimonides in 1178 CE. The Mayan calendar combined a 365-day solar year with a much more important 260-day cycle of 13 20-day units called the Tzolk'in that doesn't have a clear astronomical origin, but does make scholars argue a lot, which is always fun. And then there's the ancient Egyptians, who created a civil calendar sometime around 2000 BCE by rather ergonomically supplementing their 12 lunar months with a 5-day intercalary period to make sure every year lined up with a 365-day solar cycle. These 5 days rounded off the year and were seen as the birthdays of several major gods, and that's the kind of concept that definitely has a myth attached, right? Like, come on, that's a golden opportunity. So today let's talk about how those oh-so-convenient 5 bonus days got tacked onto the calendar and rounded everything off nicely, except for leap years, but they didn't do those, so shush. So, that's a golden opportunity. So today let's talk about how those oh-so-convenient 5 bonus days got tacked onto the calendar and rounded everything off nicely, except for leap years, but they didn't do those, so shush. So,
okay, we are 2 minutes and 45 seconds into this video, and I feel like my brain is going to explode. I have just learned so much information that I did not know about before. I don't know anything about lunar years and solar years. I am a very simple individual, okay? I know that a year is 365 days, except for sometimes it's 366. That's all I know about years. I didn't even know, like, when I think about the lunar calendar, I think about, like, hippy-dippy people who are, like, super into, like, astrology and stuff. You know, like, you feel me? I don't know. Somebody out there gets me. Somebody out there understands. But, okay, I'm excited. I've learned the background of what I needed to learn. Thank you so much, Red, for that very informative intro. And now we're going to get into the myth part, which is what I'm excited about. So, let's go.
This story is recounted by Greek historian, philosopher, and priest of Apollo Plutarch in his Moralia, written around 100 AD, in a section that is specifically about Plutarch's impression of Egyptian culture, their religious practices, and their gods. And while we're going to be discussing the Egyptian gods he was clearly talking about, it is important to note that Plutarch went out of his way to localize his story by assigning corresponding Greek gods to several Egyptian gods in this tale. It was a popular form of syncretism around this time to basically claim that other cultures with other gods were really just worshipping the Greek gods, but, like, wrong. So in this story, Thoth gets cast as Hermes, Set is regularly referred to as Typhon, primordial earth and sky gods Geb and Nut are called Cronus and Rhea, Ra gets downgraded to just the sun, and Nephthys is briefly called Aphrodite, who is then described as consorting with Typhon, which I don't think is supported in the Greek version, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me. So our story begins with the sun god Ra pissed off. This isn't a strictly uncommon occurrence, but this particular fit of pique is the result of sky goddess Nut and earth god Geb boning down. It's not entirely clear why this bugs him so much, but whatever the reason, Ra lays down an official heavenly decree that Nut cannot give birth any day of the year. Yep, all 360 of them are strictly off limits. This is a bummer for a lot of reasons, and Thoth, god of wisdom and assorted smart guy things, decides to help her out. So he gambles with Khonshu the moon god on Games of Senate and absolutely smokes him, winning a small fraction of his total moonlight, about 1/70th. Now the moon is totally dark only once a lunar cycle, once every 30 days and 12 times every 360 days. So if you divide up the 348 days when the moon is actually visible, 1/70th is almost exactly 5 days. So Thoth takes his winnings and uses them to expand the calendar, appending his 5 new days to the 360 that are already there. These days are, of course, outside the parameters of Ra's initial curse, and Nut is free to have as many babies as she wants. She proceeds to do just that, popping out Osiris, Horus, Set, Isis, and Nephthys in quick succession, rounding out the great Aeneid in one fell swoop, and as a happy consequence, perfectly smoothing out the observed solar year. Except that, you know, they didn't do leap days, and because this intercalary period was so deeply religiously significant that the idea of adding a leap day was politically and religiously controversial and was actively shot down when they tried it in the 200s BCE, so the whole calendar year very slowly slipped out of alignment with the actual solar year and the observed seasons. But look, it's fine, okay? Sometimes reading the precise mathematical turnings of the celestial spheres is just a little more art than science.
Like, there's only so much that you can do about it. I really like that explanation. I think it was full of I wish we could have gone a little bit more in depth. I know that the Miscellaneous Myths videos are supposed to be just like cute little tidbits, but like, I really liked it and I want to know more, and now I have to go do my own research, which like really isn't that bad because like I just use my friend's JSTOR and I go read all the scholarly articles. But anyway, what I'm saying is that I really enjoyed the video and I really enjoyed the story, and I now understand why there was like so much explanation in the beginning. Like I was kind of in the beginning of the video I was like, okay, this is real interesting, but what does this have to do with anything? But this myth was literally like an explanation for like why everything was so like disjointed, and I just really like that. I just really like that like we really had people really had an answer for everything. Why is that? Oh, well, you know, that God over there did that thing against that God, but then this other God walked in. Like, I like that. I really do enjoy that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave your reaction requests and recommendations down in the comments below. And other than that, peace out, Hope Biscuits. It's Skittin' Lit.